Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC Fight Night Austin, Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett just ended, and this is going to be my post-fight reaction. I usually mainly talk about the main event of the Fight Night cards, but this UFC Austin Fight Night card was just spectacular from top to bottom. There was not a shit-stained fight on the entire card. So I think I'm going to briefly go through the entire card after I break down the main event and just briefly discuss every fight on the card, because this was one of the greatest Fight Night cards of all time and definitely one of the best of 2022. The only one in recent memory that even compares to UFC Fight Night Austin was UFC London. That was an amazing Fight Night card as well. So let's start off with the main event. Calvin Kattar, Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett gets the split decision. And I know a lot of you are wondering, who did I score it for? I thought that Calvin Kattar won this fight. I do not think it was a robbery, but I thought it was pretty clear that Calvin Kattar won this fight. As far as the first three rounds were kind of up in the air. I could understand how judges could score those rounds for Josh Emmett. I thought round 4 was the clearest round of the fight, and I thought that was for Calvin Kattar. And I thought round 5 was a clear round for Calvin Kattar as well. And I seen the judges' scorecards before I jumped on this video. And there is an egregious scorecard by Chris Lee, not even Saul D'Amato. Saul D'Amato scored it for Josh Emmett, but she gave Josh Emmett the first 3 rounds, which is plausible. I believe that is plausible. And by the way, guys, comment down below and let me know who you thought won this main event, Calvin Kattar or Josh Emmett. So Chris Lee, this is absolutely despicable and an atrocious scorecard. There was one judge that scored it for Calvin Kattar. Saul D'Amato scored it for Josh Emmett and gave him the first 3 rounds, gave Calvin Kattar rounds 4 and round 5. That's a defensible scorecard. Chris Lee gave round 4 to Josh Emmett. I don't know how you can give round 4 to Josh Emmett. Calvin Kattar in round 4 was pumping the jab continuously, landed a nasty spinning elbow, and also landed a 1-2 that really stung Josh Emmett and had him stumbling. It was the most clear-cut round of the entire fight, and I don't know what he was looking at. He needs to be held accountable. Someone needs to question him. I don't know how you could reasonably score round 4 for Josh Emmett. It's just not possible. Okay, so as far as each round by round, I'll briefly go through it. Round 1 was razor close. Calvin Kattar was winning early, pumping the jab. But then Josh Emmett, he did this periodically throughout the fight, was very aggressive towards the end of the round, and I thought he may have stole a very close round towards the end of the first round. And so I gave the first round to Emmett. Round 2, it was close. Calvin Kattar was continuing to pump the jab and landed some knees to the body. I thought this was the Calvin Kattar round, but I thought it was arguable. It could have went either way. Emmett landed some shots, had some blitzes, and again, aggressive in that last 30 seconds to 1 minute. Round 3. This round was very close. This was up there, as close to 50-50 as you can get with round 1. Calvin Kattar landed some uppercuts in this round, but I thought Calvin Kattar took this round as well. Some people were saying it was Emmett's best round, but I still scored it for Calvin Kattar. He was pumping the jab and stinging Josh Emmett repeatedly over and over and over again. We're going to get to this in more in depth in a minute. Round 4, we already went over it. I thought it was clear as day, Calvin Kattar. Round 5, Calvin Kattar pumping the jab some more, busting up Josh Emmett some more, and I thought Calvin Kattar clearly took round 5 as well. So how did Josh Emmett get this fight? I really think there was 2 factors that led to Josh Emmett getting the judges' scorecards here. I think one of them was his aggressiveness towards the last 30 seconds to 1 minute of each and every round. Every single time. When it got under a minute, Josh Emmett started to put it on him. And even though he didn't do a lot of damage or really land much in a lot of these rounds, and just towards the last minute or so, those were the last things on the judges' minds. And I think in a close round, and the first 3 were very close, you look at that last 30 seconds, I thought the first round, Josh Emmett stole it in the last 30 seconds. And I think that helped him win. And I also thought the reactions of Calvin Kattar, because Emmett is so powerful, he was throwing a lot of big shots, and it was hitting Calvin Kattar's guard. But I think the reactions of Calvin Kattar made it seem like he was getting hit more than he actually was. And I think that was the other factor that led Josh Emmett to end up getting the scorecards by the judges. But I think the story of this fight was Calvin Kattar's jab. He was pumping the jab nonstop, busting up Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett shot on a couple takedowns throughout this fight. Again, they were majority at the end of rounds. I think it was at the end of the first and the end of the third. I could be mistaken. I think it was definitely at the end of the first. He never really got close to a takedown. Calvin Kattar was able to defend each and every takedown attempt. I think there was maybe 3 throughout the entire fight, maybe 2. Calvin Kattar was busting him up with the jab. And Josh Emmett had some moments. Don't get me wrong. He landed some big shots. He landed some big right hands. But there just wasn't a lot of volume from Josh Emmett. He would just kind of squat down, load up. Calvin Kattar would jab him in the face 3 or 4 times. And then it would just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I really believe that the reason a lot of people think Josh Emmett won this fight was because he was busting up the forearms of Calvin Kattar. Because when Josh Emmett, because what it would be Calvin Kattar pumping the jab, landing the jab, throwing the right hand, throwing a standing elbow. And then it would be Josh Emmett having these Yoel Romero-esque blitzes where Calvin Kattar would duck and dodge and maybe get clipped with 1 out of 4 or 5 each and every time he was blocking these shots. You know, not to say Josh Emmett didn't land some of these shots, but for the majority of the fight, it was Josh Emmett exploding and hitting the forearms of Calvin Kattar. That's not doing damage. And I know people say, oh, the stats this, the stats that. First off, those are unofficial stats. Second off, I don't trust those stats regardless, even when they are official. And I know I've only watched it one time, so who knows, I could go back and rewatch and change my mind. But I just have a hard time believing that Josh Emmett should have got this win. And again, I'm not going to sit here and cry, robbery this, robbery that. But I thought Calvin Kattar won this fight, and it was kind of, you know, UFC Austin was one of the greatest fight night cards of all time. This was a very high-level, enjoyable fight. But when I look at this decision, I feel like it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth. And it's even worse now knowing that Chris Lee, the deciding round that got Josh Emmett this victory, was round 4 on Chris Lee's scorecard. I mean, this guy needs to be fired immediately. This was a high-level fight. You could tell Calvin Kattar was worried about the power of Josh Emmett. He put out nowhere near the amount of volume that he put out in the Giga Chikadze fight. He was worried about the power of Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett, and I said this in the pre-fight as well, I actually thought Calvin Kattar was going to win via 4th round TKO. I said he would land an uppercut or something along those lines, drop him and finish him off. Josh Emmett was super durable. He absorbed a lot of shots in this fight, but there wasn't a lot of huge power shots landed from Calvin Kattar. The jab was snapping his head back. The jab was nasty. It was a stinging, stiff jab. But at the end of the day, Calvin Kattar was not throwing a lot of power because I think he was worried about the explosiveness and the power of Josh Emmett in this fight. And I think that's why he was kind of playing it safe. He didn't throw a lot of kicks either. Neither one of these guys threw a lot of kicks. Josh Emmett, I don't know what he was thinking or what his corner was thinking, because Calvin Kattar is very heavy on that lead leg. And Josh Emmett was smashing it when he went to the leg kick. But for some reason, he only threw a low kick like 5 or 6 times throughout an entire 25 minutes. I think he could have done some serious damage with the low kick. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, he wasn't throwing it. At the end of the fight, Josh Emmett said he thought he was up 4-1. I don't know what his corner was telling him. And when it was a split decision, Josh Emmett was shaking his head like, I can't believe this. I mean, I don't know why corners are giving advice on fights that are that close. Even Calvin Kattar's corner, which honestly, again, this was a close fight. I'm not saying it was a robbery. Calvin Kattar's corner was telling him, be more aggressive, be first, press forward. And I think that was the right move, even though I thought Calvin Kattar was winning, and I think a lot of them thought Calvin Kattar was winning. You know, Josh Emmett said, oh, the crowd told me that I was winning. Even Josh Emmett was talking to Dominic Cruz afterwards, and Dominic Cruz, you could see him telling him, you know, this was a 50-50 fight. He was doing like a hand gesture telling him, you know, this was a 50-50 fight. It could go either way. I think that, you know, it just sucks because I understand that MMA fights are scored round by round, and I understand that the first 3 rounds were very close. But I just think in a perfect world, even though I scored round 3 for Kattar, that was a 50-50 round, and round 1 for Kattar was a 50-50, or round 1 for Emmett was a 50-50 round. I would, in a perfect world, my scorecard would probably look like 1 and 3 for Emmett, and then rounds 2, 4, and 5 for Kattar. In no universe should Josh Emmett get round 4. I think everyone can agree with me on that one, even if you scored the fight for Josh Emmett. There's no way he should get round 4. But I think you can make a case that Calvin Kattar takes round 1 or round 2 or round 3. Even if you scored it for Calvin Kattar. It's not a robbery. I think there's going to be a lot of crying. I feel like robbery is one of the most overused words in MMA right now. It's just like everyone throws it out every time there's a close decision. And, is it unfortunate that I think Calvin Kattar won and Josh Emmett got the decision? Yes, but there's nothing we can do about it. And also, at the end of the day, Josh Emmett's not beating Alexander Volkanovski or Max Holloway unless he gets a first-round KO. And again, also, I hate to say it, Calvin Kattar's not beating either one of those guys either. He's not beating Max Holloway. We've already seen that fight, and he's not beating Volkanovski. Josh Emmett wants a title shot after this. Honestly, if Yair is able to beat Brian Ortega, I would rather see Yair Rodrigues fight for the title next. It all depends what happens at UFC 276. If Volk beats Max for a third time, if Max beats Volk in the trilogy, there's a chance we see a fourth fight between Max and Alexander Volkanovski, which would be crazy to see 4 title fights between the same 2 guys. We were potentially going to see it between Moreno and Figgy, but unfortunately Figgy's injured or having contract negotiations or whatever. But I don't see either one of these guys beating, Alexander Volkanovski or Max. So it's not the end of the world because, it's not like, oh, Calvin Kattar was this great prospect that we thought, oh, this is the guy to beat Volkanovski. Like, this would have been a terrible decision if we thought Kattar was the guy to beat Volkanovski, and then he loses a very close fight to Josh Emmett. Then it would suck so much more. But I just really believe Josh Emmett just spends too much time loading up on shots, doesn't throw enough volume. He has these blitzing moments, and Calvin Kattar was worried about the power. But outside of that, it's just a lot of it was not landing. There's not a lot of variety of attack. He's super durable. He was getting busted up. The eye was swollen up. He was cut above the eyebrow, I believe, in the first round. He ate some big shots in that 4th round. It was really the only round that he ate some big shots. He landed some decent shots as well, but again, the majority of them landed on the forearms of Calvin Kattar. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on the main event, but comment down below. Let me know who you thought won the main event. I'm genuinely curious. Let's start touching on some of these other fights on the UFC Fight Night Austin card. Tim Means versus Kevin Holland, the co-main event after Joe Lozon versus Cowboy Cerrone fell out. Kevin Holland submits Tim Means in the 2nd round. Who would have called that? Tim Means looked okay early in the fight. He landed some good shots. He was able to get Kevin Holland down. Kevin Holland was able to scramble back to his feet. In the 2nd round, he catches, I said 2nd round KO for Kevin Holland. I thought he was going to land a straight right, rock Tim Means, finish him off on the ground. He lands a straight right, rocks Tim Means in the 2nd round. Tim Means starts to look for a sloppy takedown, and Kevin Holland locks up a Darce choke immediately. Great performance for Kevin Holland. He showed the ability to get up when Tim Means took him down. He looked good on the feet. He didn't look undersized for the weight class at all. But at the end of the day, you look at the weight class at welterweight. Who do we have at the top? We have Kamaru Usman. We have Colby Covington. We have Gilbert Burns. We have Khamzat Chimaev. All those guys are great grapplers. And Kevin Holland's now in a division filled with wrestlers. So I don't know how far he can go. He's calling out Sean Brady. I think that's a terrible matchup for him. But if he gets the fight, more power to him because Sean Brady, I believe, is ranked in the top 10 right now. So great performance. It's against the Dirty Bird. I don't know how much that means. Tim Means super durable, tough guy, but he's been around forever. And, he's not like that top 15 welterweight. I don't think he's ever been ranked. But solid win for Kevin Holland. Moving down the card, Joaquin Buckley versus Albert Duraev. I thought Albert Duraev was going to win this fight. I picked him via 3rd round submission. I thought Buckley would wear down. Duraev would be able to use the grappling, tire him out, and eventually get a submission later in the fight. Buckley put a beating on him. The first round was landing some good shots, landed a head kick, hurt Duraev. Duraev actually landed a head kick as well. And Duraev's striking actually looked much improved in this fight, but he just wasn't really able to get Buckley down. I think in the first round, he wasn't able to get him down. In the 2nd round, he was still getting lit up. He got clipped with a left hand at one point in time when he was ducking down on a shot, and it just busted up his eye badly in the 2nd round. And Buckley was just landing more on the feet. Buckley actually looked a little bit sloppy, but he looked massive at middleweight. I mean, he looked jacked, and he was landing some good shots. He was missing a lot of shots too, but he was just faster and had more power than Duraev, and he was able to stuff the takedown. He wasn't worried about the takedowns. Eventually, I think he got taken down once he might have got taken down twice in the 2nd round, but he was able to find his way back to his feet. And if Duraev can't hold you down and you're fighting Joaquin Buckley, who's a very dynamic striker, it's probably not going to end well for you. He continued to land on Duraev. Duraev was trying to come forward. Sometimes he shot for desperation takedowns where Buckley saw him coming a mile away and just continued to get pieced up on the feet. It wasn't a total, terrible beating, but he was just really wearing the damage. And I thought, at the end of the second round, I tweeted out actually that, if Duraev wasn't able to get the stoppage at the end of the second, I think he got Buckley down for like 30 seconds or whatever. I said that, basically it might get stopped in between rounds. Sure enough, we come back from the break. The doctor comes in, looks at the eye. It's completely swollen shut, waves off the fight. Joaquin Buckley gets a second round TKO or doctor stoppage, whatever you want to call it. It says TKO here. Okay, moving down the card to one of my favorite fights on the card. Damir Ismagulov versus Guram Kutateladze. This was a high-level, elite-level fight. Both guys are great strikers. Both guys are great grapplers. The grappling canceled each other out. I thought Guram clearly took the first round. Damir all fight was doing this weird twitch. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he has Tourette's. I don't know if he got poked in the eye or punched in the eye early in the fight. He was doing it with like a tick with his whole neck, moving to the side. It was very weird. But Guram hurt him early in the first round, tried to go after him, but wasn't able to finish him, was landing some good body kicks, and this was just a high-level back-and-forth fight. I thought the first round clearly went to Guram. The second round, I thought, went to Damir. He was pumping the jab, landing some good shots, defending the takedowns. Round 3, there was an interesting, grappling exchange in round 3 where there was, I don't remember who initiated the clinch or who looked for the takedown, but eventually Guram ended up in an advantageous position on the ground and threw a knee, which what appeared to be to the chest, but live, I thought it hit the chin. And still, even after watching the replays, it's 50-50 on where it hit. And, he would have got the advantageous position in a close third round. Third round was very close. And Herb Dean decided to step in and stand him up. He loses the position. He gave him a stern warning. And in looking back at the replays, I wasn't sure if it actually landed or not. So that could have cost Guram the fight because, Herb said, okay, illegal strike. And we go to the judges' scorecards. Damir gets a 29-28. Guram gets a 29-28. There was actually a mistake when they read the judges' scorecards. They initially said 28-28. That actually did not happen. There was a 29-28 for Guram, 29-28 for Damir Ismagulov, and then there was a 30-27 for Damir Ismagulov. I don't know which judge that was. I should have went back and looked at it. I don't know what they were watching. The first round clearly went to Guram. If anything, you could make a better case for a 30-27 Guram. I think Damir clearly took the second. The third was the closest round of the entire fight. And with that weird exchange in the last minute, who knows? Both of these guys, neither one of these guys loses any stock in this fight. Both guys are high-level fighters. Both have great striking. Both have great grappling. I can't wait to see what they do in the 155-pound division. I think this is just more fresh blood moving their way up in the lightweight division. It was an amazing fight, and it was super high level for two guys that aren't even ranked. Moving down the card, Julian Marquez versus Gregory Rodrigues. What a finish by Gregory Rodrigues. Marquez, he hung in there and he tried to land shots of his own, but Gregory Rodrigues was just a little bit faster, a little bit more technical. He hurt Julian Marquez. Marquez was swinging for the fences up against the fence, trying to circle out, try to landing shots of his own, but Gregory Rodrigues was just all over him in the first round. I picked Rodrigues by KO. I don't remember if I picked first or second round KO, but Rodrigues was just piecing him up on the feet, using his head movement. He was picking his shots. He wasn't being, crazy looking for the kill. He was picking his shots not to gas himself out. He landed some good shots on the ground after he dropped Marquez. I think Marquez, he clipped him. He kind of fell back. He was like leaning up against the cage. As he was trying to get up, Rodrigues started landing some shots. Then eventually he backed off a little bit. Then he landed like 3 straight rights and just clipped up Julian Marquez and eventually just flattened him out, melted him. It was brutal. It was a brutal finish and a great win for Gregory Rodrigues, especially in the middleweight division. We need some fresh blood. I think Rodrigues is like 30 years old. He doesn't look 30, but still, interesting contender within middleweight, moving his way up the division. Moving down the card, one of my favorite fights on the card going in, Adrian Yanez versus Tony Kelley. This was a decent matchup for Adrian Yanez. It was a decent step up in competition competition. Not the biggest step up, but a decent fighter in Tony Kelley. And, Adrian Yanez was the honorary Brazilian after the comments from Tony Kelley. And then Tony Kelley comes in and misses weight. Yanez lit this man up. Tony Kelley had some moments. He landed some good teep kicks to the body. But Yanez was just so much crisper on the feet with his boxing. Just started clipping Tony Kelley up. At one point he hurt him. He swarmed him a little bit. Tony Kelley was able to survive. And it was weird. The second Tony Kelley survived, all of a sudden he started blitzing Yanez. And then eventually Yanez clipped him with a right, I think right around the guard. Yanez had some nasty hooks on the feet. Clipped him with that. And then just swarmed him from then on out. It honestly could have been stopped when Tony Kelley fell to the ground. He actually hit his head on the ground on the mat, but the ref didn't jump in. He was kind of down on all fours, and then it was just Yanez going to work. There were 6 huge, brutal shots on Tony Kelley that, the ref could have already stepped in, finishes him, and I think Adrian Yanez deserves a ranked opponent next. If he alone doesn't deserve to be in the rankings over a guy like maybe Rafael Sunsao, Yanez could find himself in the rankings coming up. Great performance. The boxing looked crisp. The footwork looked crisp. He ate some shots of his own, which is kind of, one of the knocks on him. He ate some shots in the Davey Grant fight as well. So that's something he's got to work on. But the head movement looks decent. The boxing looks great. The power looks good. 135 is just stacked with killers. Yanez isn't even ranked, and he absolutely brutalized Tony Kelley. Tony Kelley was flipping off the crowd beforehand, talking shit in the cage apparently, and Yanez actually flipped him off after he KO'd him, which was just crazy. But then they ended up shaking hands after the fight. I think it was just in the moment. Moving down to the prelims, Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Natália Silva. I am so glad that I watched this fight. And I know it's popular in today's day and age to shit on women's MMA constantly. Natália Silva looked like she's a future contender within the flyweight division. She had great footwork. She had a great variety of attacks. She had great hands. I mean, there was nothing not to like. And Jasmine was a straight up punching bag in this fight. Walking forwards, Natália Silva was just circling in and out and just beating her up. She was chopping the legs. She was landing body kicks. She was landing Dennis Seaver style spinning kicks to the body. And not only did she look good doing it, I feel like, a lot of people would throw her right to the top of the 125-pound division right now. I know I would, and I know that sounds a bit premature, but with the lack of contenders at 125, she looked incredible. Maybe if you had one knock on her, it would be the power, because she was lighting Jasmine up with some hooks, with some jabs, with everything she had, and never really seemed to rock her. So that's a little bit of a question mark there. She was able in clinch positions to win the battle, dig the underhook. She was strong in the clinch. She never got taken down, I don't believe. She got some takedowns of her own. She's a great grappler. She's known as a submission specialist. So I am super excited for the addition. This was her UFC debut, Natália Silva within the women's UFC flyweight division. Great performance. You haven't seen the fight, go back and watch it. Moving down the card, Court McGee versus Jeremiah Wells. What a performance. I can't believe Court McGee is still fighting. Seriously, how long has this man been around? I am very sad what happened to Court McGee in this fight. Jeremiah Wells looked so impressive. I think he clipped him with a left hook, just dropped him. He was out cold, flattened, just flatlined. And he followed up with some shots that weren't really necessary, but it's really Herb Dean's fault for not getting in there. Jeremiah Wells with another impressive win. I want to see him get a step up in competition in his next fight. I still can't, the second I saw him coming out for this fight, I couldn't help but remember him running around the cage when he fought Blood Diamond and tripping and falling. But he looks super impressive. 2 big stoppages wins in a row. I can't wait to see where Jeremiah Wells goes from here. His future's bright within the welterweight division. Moving down the card, this card was so good. I'm doing an almost 30-minute post-fight talking about every fight on the card. That's how good this fight card was. Ricardo Ramos versus Danny Chavez. Spinning back elbow in the first round. Ricardo Ramos has done this multiple times. Just hit him with a spinning back elbow right on the forehead. He was out on his feet, followed up with a couple shots, literally just slumped him. Referee stepped in. Great win. It was in the first minute of the fight. Ricardo Ramos, I want to see him with a step up in competition at featherweight. These divisions, these lower divisions, 55, 45, 35, have killers just everywhere. Can't wait to watch Ricardo Ramos' next fight. Spinning back elbow was just perfectly timed, perfectly placed. He looked fast, had good footwork, good pressure, beat Danny Chavez, great win in impressive, spectacular fashion. Moving down the card, Maria Oliveira versus Gloria De Paula. I picked Gloria De Paula in this fight. Maria Oliveira, though, this was a close fight. Could have went either way. Was throwing crazy like 10, 15, 20 punch combinations. I thought she won the first round and the third round. Gloria De Paula took the second round. She mixed in some grappling there, landed some good shots of her own. Gloria De Paula looked completely out of her element early on. Looked like she was getting swarmed. Looked like she was on her way to getting finished. But as Maria Oliveira slowed down a little bit, De Paula was able to land some of her shots of her own in the second round. And I think there is a debate. I think the first round clearly went to Oliveira. There is some debate. De Paula could have took rounds 2 and round 3. Round 3 was pretty close, but I still gave it to Oliveira. But it was a solid fight. Both girls were super active, back and forth fight, landing good shots. And neither one of them was gassed at the end of the fight. So it was a decent fight. It's the women's strawweight division, which I believe is the best women's division in all of MMA. And a solid win for Maria Oliveira. Moving down the card. To a bantamweight fight on the prelims, Eddie Wineland versus Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann just brutalized Eddie Wineland. And honestly, I didn't know Eddie Wineland was even in the UFC anymore. Cody Stamann clipped him badly. He was out on his feet, swarmed him. This could have been stopped earlier. Just swarmed him with nasty power shots. And just eventually, finally, the referee stepped in. I mean, Eddie Wineland took entirely too much damage. I didn't think he was still fighting. I know a lot of people said, well, that's Sean O'Malley's best win. And I know they're going to say, oh, that was 2 years ago. It was a different Eddie Wineland. Eddie Wineland should have been retired for a while now, in my opinion. And I hate to say that. The guy's a legend in the sport, but still, I mean, going out there against a guy like Cody Stamann, who I know he's lost his last fight, but man, he didn't really belong in there. You know, I thought this was a mismatch to begin with. I thought Cody Stamann would beat him. I didn't know he would brutalize him this badly in the first round. I mean, it ended in the first minute. It ended in the first minute. He ate a lot of damage. I believe he retired after the fight. He took off his gloves, and I hope that's the end of his career, even though it's sad. You know, I know these guys got to make money, but I don't want to see the guy absorb any more damage. Moving down the card, the second to last one on the card, Phil Hawes versus Deron Winn. Deron Winn, super durable, absorbed a lot of damage in this fight. I don't know if he belongs at middleweight, though. Maybe he needs to find a way to get down to welterweight. He just looks so short and small in there. Phil Hawes was just picking him apart. I thought there was multiple occasions where Phil Hawes could have finished him, but just didn't have that killer instinct. For whatever reason, did not have that killer instinct. And I know someone's probably laughing at me right now because in the third round, eventually, and it was more of accumulation, finally the ref steps in. I think he dropped him. I can't remember. This was second fight on the card. But he just got, Phil Hawes was brutalizing him the entire fight. And I think this could have been a case of Phil Hawes needed a win and, he was just trying to be safe because Deron Winn was game. Deron Winn was throwing back, slinging back his own power shots, even though he was getting brutalized to the body, getting his legs chopped, getting hit with straight rights. He was game. So I think Phil Hawes might have made the right decision. I would have just liked to seen a little more killer instinct. Eventually it was a round 2. I'm sorry. It was round 2 TKO for Phil Hawes. End of the round 2. So moving down the card, Roman Dolidze versus Kyle Daukaus. Roman Dolidze gets the first round KO, 1 minute and 13 seconds in. And this was just a brutal knee in the clinch. They were clinched up. Kyle Daukaus was fighting for head position. And Roman Dolidze had the flexibility to bring the knee up, land it right on Kyle Daukaus' forehead, hurt him badly, dropped him to the ground, and then just followed up with some brutal ground and pound. I think he clipped him on the feet, and that's kind of how they ended up in the position against the cage. Then Kyle Daukaus worked his way back to his feet. Roman Dolidze was landing some big shots as he was getting up. They were in the clinch position, and then that's when the knee came. The second the knee came, I knew that this fight was over. You could just see it in Kyle Daukaus. The fight was over. It was just a brutal knee right to the forehead. Finished him off. And there were so many great finishes on this card. But a great win for Roman Dolidze. I don't know where Kyle Daukaus goes from here. I think he had that weird no contest against Kevin Holland. I think that was his last fight. Now he got KO'd by Roman Dolidze in the first round. I don't know where he goes. Is he a little bit undersized for middleweight? It seems like we talk about both the Daukaus brothers, being undersized for their weight class. Chris Daukaus at heavyweight being a little bit undersized for heavyweight. Now we have Kyle Daukaus. Seems a little bit undersized for middleweight as well. So that does it. I just went through every fight on UFC Fight Night Austin for my post-fight show. Again, if this is something you guys want to see more of in the future, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Again, I thought Calvin Kattar won. I thought he should have bare minimum won 3-2 on the judges' scorecards. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching this video. And if you join me for my 4-hour stream for UFC Austin, I appreciate you as well. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.